Welcome to Today in the News on Vanguard Live. I am Precious Chukudi. We begin with the front pages of the papers this morning, starting off with Vanguard. Vanguard is leading with why we shelved planned nationwide strike, and that's coming from NLC and TUC. The writer says NLC cites mood stability of nation after general election, accuses industrial courts of working against workers' interests. We shelved strike because government accepted all our demands, TUC. Rep ask federal government to implement resolutions. Also, we can see a photo story showing some non-returning members of the House of Representatives moving things out of the National Assembly complex in Abuja. On page 9, Atiku accuses INEC of blocking access to documents despite paying 6 million naira. Air Nigeria unveiling, a gimmick, and that's coming from Senate. You can see that story on page 8. Stories above on page 6. Daily Times ex-editor Peter Pan Enahoro for burial in UK today. Peter Obi, court admits ward result from Lagos, Kogi, Sokoto, 14 other states. You can see that on page 33. Senate approves Tinubu's request to appoint 20 special advisors. INEC publishes the final list of candidates for Kogi, Imo, Bayelsa, Guba polls. On page 22, artificial intelligence, risk, gains of revolutionary technology, and lastly, on the front page of Vanguard newspaper, we have World Bank, Nigeria's economic growth too slow to reduce poverty. Let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. The Nation is leading with Tinubu in crucial talks over Senate President Speaker. The writer says President urges Wase Betara Gadi others to accept party's choice. Meeting slated with APC governors, NWC senators, rep elects today. Filing discrepancies, talk Atiku PDP petition. Stories above. Manufacturers spend 76.7 billion naira on power in 6 months. And we have Nigeria Air launch a fraud, rep panel claims. And lastly, on the front page of the Nation, NLC, why we suspended planned strike. All right, let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian is leading with unreliable grid, alternative energy spike borrowing cost by 50%. We can see an infograph showing the rising energy cost. TSOs knock NLC for suspending strike, e-hailing drivers down to shut down apps. You can see that on page 6. Rep terms Nigeria Air launch fraud, urge Tinubu to probe project. Bandit kills 2, abduct 30 over after community missed deadline on levies. Police probe assassination of UI professor. International body decries poaching as Nigeria loses 2,998 nurses to UK. Controversies trail Obi's pally with LP lawmakers over National Assembly leadership. And that's how we can take on front page of the Guardian. Let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. The Punch is leading with subsidy. Rep demands NNPCL audit over unaccounted 2 trillion naira asset. The writer says that some NNPCL subsidiaries brought crude oil without evidence of payment, and that's coming from lawmakers. Legislators, OPS backs refinery privatization. Uber boat drivers begin nationwide strike. Obasari elected speaker as Sanwo-Olu inaugurates Lagos Assembly. Police investigate assassination of UI professor. And on page 8, anti-inauguration lawyer finder 20 million naira faces NBA probe. Stories above. Finally, Senate throws out Buhari's controversial water bill. 51 jostle for Kogi, Bayelsa Imo governor seats. Lastly, on the front page of the Punch newspaper, House alleges fraud, asks Tinubu to suspend Nigeria Air. And that's how we can take on the front pages of the papers this morning. Join us after the break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. If you're just joining, still today in the news on Vanguard Live, I am Precious Chukudi. And joining us to talk about some of the stories on the front pages of the paper is Mr. Gbenro Olajigbe, Executive Director of Emergency and Risk Alert. It's good to have you join us today, Mr. Gbenro.
It's a pleasure being with you.
All right, let's delve in. Today was supposed to be when the nationwide strike was supposed to start, and of course, NLC and TUC have given their own version of why they shelved the strike. According to them, they said that in view of the outcome of the presidential election that is still being challenged at the tribunal, and also the need to pursue nation stability and the restraining order obtained by the federal government from the National Industrial Court as the reasons for shelving the strike. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't buy into such argument. I think it's a strategic failure on the side of labor. Strategic failure in the sense that if you so feel strongly, there is a way you can go around it. NLC have declared in the previous time that any time that fuel subsidy is removed, instantly a strike we start immediately. So what has happened to that vow? I think it's being clever by half. The fact of it is that my concern, and maybe concern of very few Nigerians who understand this thing, is that the fuel so-called subsidy removal is not well thought through. It's not thought through. People were told lies about there is corruption. We all agree that there is corruption within the oil sector. But then, who is dealing with the corrupt people in the oil sector? We all agree to that level. But the real issue is that why do we import fuel? That is government failure. So the so-called subsidy remover is not a remover in strict sense of it. What happened is that federal government that has responsibility to refine oil and as well is shifting the payment of that so-called subsidy to the man on the street, to the ordinary people. They have been canvassing about that it's going to affect those who ride cars, those who have many cars, the rich and everything. It's not true. It's going to, every poor man will find it in every grain of rice he or she buys. He will find that gravel in every piece of beans he buys in the market. It's going to reflect on his capacity to commute from one place to the other, transportation. So is it not affecting them? The issue is not whether it affects the rich or the poor. It's going to affect everybody, but then the rich has they have a better shock absorber. As a matter of fact, some of them will not even feel it. But the real challenge of it is that diesel has driven away multinational companies away from Nigeria because they cannot cope with the cost of power, and that makes them not competitive in the market. Their product is not competitive in the market. Some of them have moved to Ghana and everything. The hike in fuel is going to lead to shutting down of small-scale businesses like Baba. So who is going to go to a barber's shop to go and cut hair with all this type of exorbitant cost and everything when you are battling with that? And look at the per capita income of Nigeria. Per capita of income is less than $300, Nigeria. And then you have people who are not even working. Many, I'm talking of statistical data. Over 65% of Nigerian young people are not working. They have to move from one place to another, whether in search of job or in search of what to eat, whether daily activities or whatever. And many people like that, even workers. So it has spiral effect. The effect is not localized on the so-called rich alone. The poor will be more affected. Those are indices that should have been considered, and not a very pedestrian analysis that is going to affect only few people and everything. We all agree that corruption is there, but it's the government responsibility to fight corruption. Do you know how much this same government, I'm talking of government in the last 8 years, has subsidized Dangote and the rich? Over 2.3 billion Nigerian money are in that refinery of Dangote that has not even started work. And Dangote is saying that he has even paid off near 70% of the money he borrowed in the market when a drop of petrol has not been produced. So if we take the analysis holistically, they are just gaslighting the poor. They are blackmailing them to believe that it's going to affect the rich alone, which is not true. And let me equally add this, like I've said in several fora, that when you subsidize, claim to be subsidizing fuel, it's not only fuel alone you are subsidizing. You are subsidizing cost of transportation. You are subsidizing cost of basic needs like food, like even non-food materials that the poor actually need. So the analysis wasn't detailed, and the analysis wasn't thorough. The analysis was selfish and parochial, and equally what they want the society to. So that is the level of analysis. NLC want the strike to, of course, they should go ahead with their negotiation, but it shouldn't be self-interest driven negotiation that look at wages alone. What of other Nigerians? How many Nigerians are workers? If you increase, even with what percentage are they going to increase salary that we meet up with hyperinflation? Because of devaluation of naira. Those are the real issue. Those are the real issues in doing analysis when it comes to oil price and this thing. They have not given us a terminal date for importation of fuel, which there's no oil producing and oil exporting country that is importing refined products. There's none. There's none. Okay, now assuming without considering that the actual price is 500 and something naira per litre, but the fact is that the price of oil in global market is climbing. That means that in a few days or time, later this year, you might be talking of 1,000 naira per litre. Would they be talking of increasing the salary at that particular time again? Those are issues. If you don't address the fundamental, the root causes of the problem, you are going to be battling with this. I just pity those who don't understand depth and in-depth of this thing, and they are celebrating as if Eldorado, we have arrived as Eldorado. It's not yet Uhuru.
Yeah. All right,
It's not yet Uhuru.
Mr. Bero, so are you saying that you are not like in agreement with what TUC say in terms of increments of minimum wage to 200k monthly?
Who will give them that? They are just deceiving themselves, and they are being deceived too. And of course, I don't history of NLC in terms of protecting interest of the public in the last 8 years has not been a good one. There is no good record there. So I've not seen any. They have not demonstrated that type of tenacity, that type of resilience, that type of commitment. And they should have known that even the government will go to court, industrial court ordinarily, in order to stop them. So all this ambush should have been considered when they are making vow. Why didn't they continue the negotiation and everything without declaring strike and suddenly do that if they walk out of a meeting when they have given appropriate notice deed to the government? So they know the game they are playing, and of course it's what it is. It's Nigeria and a new start of another joke.
All right, Mr. Bero, in your own view, what do you think would tackle or what are the solutions that would help to tackle post-subsidy removal?
Importation of fuel should be stopped. That is what it's not out of courage. It's not out of courage when a president comes out that I'm removing subsidy. That is not a attribute of a courage. It's you coming up that in the next 3 months we are stopping importation. We have put so in place. Then we can say that we have a courageous leader. It's just like somebody that is clapping for himself that he has demolished houses, but he's not building estates. So how does that come to a right decision? Ordinarily, importation should not have been mentioned among Nigerian punishing we have it. Tragically, we have been battling with that. We are not saying that it's not even right in the first place, not to talk of the issue of subsidizing it. Because when you import, what you actually do is that you are energizing another nation's economies. You are providing jobs for other citizens in other countries. And we have been doing this and telling story about that for long. It's scandalous to say that you are using almost 7 trillion to import fuel in a country whose budget is not one third of your budget. Very, very scandalous. So the responsibility of government, what government ought to have done is to stop importation by making provision for refineries to work in Nigeria. Whether government owned, whether private owned, they can work hand in hand in order to frustrate the fraudster in the oil sectors. All right, in the oil sector. So that is what should be done.
All right, Mr. Gwen, let's move on.
And in the interim, okay.
All right, let's move ahead and talk about this. Now, let's talk about the Senate. Senate has taken a swipe at the federal government at the unveiling of the Nigerian Air, of which they said, is the last minute unveiling of the Ethiopian airline. And they've said that is a gimmick. What are your thoughts on this?
We Senate, are they knowing at the tweet light of the administration? This is administration, they have supported a lot of heresies under Buhari, a lot of heresies. Why are they condemning it? They wasted Nigeria money appropriated by Senate. Somebody took it to London and to say that it's launching Air Nigeria in London. Who does that? This is the worst National Assembly we ever had in the history of the 24 years history of the Fourth Republic. Endorsing everything, and is it because Buhari has left? They found their voice suddenly. Who did not know that was a scam? The so-called Nigeria. Does it even make sense for you to seed it, to have seeded it to Kenya and Ethiopia in the first place? Those are issues that is affecting Nigeria.
All right. Some of the questions that Nigerians are asking is, one of the things that we noticed was that the past administration were really in a hurry to inaugurate a couple of things, and the Nigerian Air is one of it. As one of the things begging for answers to this question is why they were in a hurry to unveil the Nigerian Air, and without the necessary groundworks, that should have been done. How do you react to some of the quick inaugurations that was happening before the past administration ended?
Well, it is just the continuation of the fraud that started it. So they want a make-believe airline. They want to create a make-believe airline to justify the fraudulent activities that has trailed even the issue of Air Nigeria. So there's no Air Nigeria anywhere. It's Ethiopia here that you have. It's not Air Nigeria. Does it even bring glory to Nigeria? What dignity do you find in the fact that the one that is leading your national airline is Ethiopia? Why can't we stand on our own? We either stand on our own, have our own, that bears our national flag, or we forget it, or we don't have. This is a country that had Nigerian Airways before. Robust, doing well until the politicians and those in power killed it. So what are they doing now? A retrogression. There was a time they wanted to start the same joke with Virgin Atlantic that under Obasanjo that started as national carrier, but it didn't endure because of the same attitude of Nigerian government and people in power. So this is not the first time, but this one is the worst scandal that has ever happened to Nigeria. That somebody will take a Nigerian money to go and frivolously launch non-existing airline in United Kingdom under Buhari and under the supervision of Atiku. And now, after just few days to exit of that government, bringing, I think you heard what the managing director of the so-called Nigeria Air said, that the airline actually they brought it to Nigeria. It was a chartered flight that painted in Nigerian color. It's unfortunate that this is the only country that accommodates such grandiose corruption and immoral financial odium that we have endured over years. So those are the issues. Everything we pass, nothing will happen to them today. In fact, all of them ought to have been arrested. This is shameful. For our national image, it's shameful. For blackmailing Nigeria into a particular fraud is unacceptable. It's scandalous. And those who are involved should be dealt with.
All right, let's move on. And the PDP candidate Atiku has actually, accused INEC of hampering the case filed to challenge the outcome of the presidential election after he has, despite paying, over 6 million naira for the certification of exhibit he intends to tender in evidence. What are your thoughts on Atiku's claim?
Well, the case is in court. Atiku is in the right place. He should go and tell the judge what has happened and how it has happened. Those are the issues. It's no longer in the court of public opinion. The case is in the court. He should strictly advance his case there and stop lamenting. The problem is that almost all the presidential candidates are rightists. They believe in the same philosophy. And of course, we are just looking at what will happen, even under this same regime that pumped the president now. Let's see what he's going to do. And if the case go against his favor, it should be removed. And the one that court rules should come up. And if it's the president that is eventually confirmed by the court, so be it. All I know is that the interest of Nigerians, particularly ordinary Nigerians, the poor people, the interest is not paramount in the heart of this category of people because of their belief, because of their economic orientation, because of the choice they have made in terms of class issues, and because of the ideology they have submitted to, which is Bretton Woods in nature, capitalism in orientation, and ruthless one for that matter. So they belong into that same class that the poor should be, even if they have to be cheerful, it should be with cautious optimism.
All right, let's talk about this. Since we're talking about the president, now the Senate has appointed about 20 special advisors for the president. What's your take on that?
Well, that is good for him. Let's see those who will come up on board with him and see the type of advice they will give. I'm not excited when advisors or ministers are choosing or approved for anybody. The fact is that what impact will he have on Nigeria? Particularly the impact of on the ordinary people on the street. But what I will advise this administration to do is to look at way of reducing costs and not have a litany of advisors and ministers, most of them in conflictual contest with themselves, whether as minister of state or everything. So he should just obey the constitution, but largely reduce the cost of governance, because that is the problem. You are asking the poor now to make sacrifice, but what sacrifice are they going to make as the ruler of Nigeria? What sacrifice? Are they going to continue with the same iniquitous salary and emolument they have been taking before, or there will be a reduction? Is it going to be business as usual? We are just talking of Air Nigeria. That is one aspect of fraudulent activities that took place in the immediate past government. Extremely and disgracefully fraudulent. To initiate something that is phony and branded it as a national carrier. knowing fully that you didn't mean it. You wasted our resources. You didn't do anything at the tail end of your idea. You went to paint an airplane. Are we joking in this country? Those are the questions. At times, I think they just feel that, well, Nigeria is still by moonlight space. And that is why we have this type of thing. It's absurd. It's inconceivable. It's unacceptable that we are going to have that. I think and I hope that President Bola Tinubu will not continue in that trajectory, because it will be tragic for society to live this type of malfeasance that we have in Nigeria's space.
All right, so let's take a look at Mr. and Mrs. before we go. Mrs. is speaking this morning. She says, so the strike action has been suspended. I thought we were going to spend the whole day together. I have prepared pounded yam with assorted meats, catfish pepper soup, and your favorite wine. And Mr. says, is that so? Dear, from this minute, we are on strike.
Oh, yes. I think that is a good strike. Food should not be suspended because of people who suspend strike and everything. Because at home, there should be peace. And one of the ingredients is feed your basic needs, primary of which is feeding yourself and feeding the family. And of course, taking a rest at home, listening to one another so to avoid conflict. And at the same time, it's even good for the family to take themselves out of Nigeria problem and enjoy their life on their own. Forget the problem, because if you think about Nigeria problem, depression could actually kill people. And it's a good thing, and the jam is not a bad idea at this particular time if you can afford it. Mr. should thank Mrs. and of course they should equally remember that most of their neighbor cannot afford that luxury. They should reach out to them.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Gbenro Olajigbe, Executive Director of Emergency and Risk Alert. Thank you for sharing your thought with us this morning.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Also, remember that you can equally like, share, and subscribe on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. Find out today's stories. You can go to our website, www.vanguardngr.com, to find out more. I am Precious Chukudi, and thank you.